Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another show. Going to be doing a review, slightly different. This one's not going to be dedicated to Darth Dawkins, but it does feature one of his kind of acolytes, a guy named JT. So we're going to get into that here in a little bit. Let me first say hello to people who have been waiting. Thanks to everybody who's joining live. 8:30 to Awesome. Welcome. AJ, good to see you. Daniel, Alex Baptista, Aaron Massa, Calvin Whiffen, Repo, God equals the square root of -1, Floyd FP, good to see you, JL Warren, good to see you, Wilberforce, P Barnes, Reconator, alias fake name, some guy named Bob94, good to see you, Russ Run, Red Fang, Deanie Wright, Tyler West, Maria McIntyre. Good to see all of you. So, if you are so inclined, JL Warren is up for a vote on faceofhorror.org. So if you're interested, go over there and give a vote. All right. So to kind of set this one up, this one doesn't really require a lot of setup. So Ozzy has been participating in Clubhouse rooms for a little bit now, after being kind of away from his YouTube channel. It's got good material on it if you're interested in Presup and philosophy, but he hasn't been very active on that for the last several years. But he is an occasional guest on other people's YouTube shows. He's been on Clubhouse for a little while now, and he was in a conversation. From what I understand, the background to this one, he was in a conversation with Tone Loc, who is buddy with Darth Dawkins. And then JT comes in, and JT has kind of a weird reputation. He's a theist, he's a Christian, been on Clubhouse for a while. His reputation before was that he was kind of a nice guy, and then at some point kind of took a turn, and it seems like the pivotal point was probably the influence of Darth Dawkins, and so he tries to get into a little bit of a Presup rigmarole thing with Ozzy, and Ozzy is not having it. So a couple things to note with this one. Well, when we get into it, it'll become kind of obvious. But we're playing this one probably normal speed. I don't know if I'm going to have too much to comment on it, but it's a good video, so I did want to throw my opinions in there, whenever. So, but thanks to everybody that is joining right now, and thanks to anybody who watches this eventually. As usual, same rules apply. Let me know if I'm not coming through or if the video doesn't sound right. Other than that, we should be good to go. So here we go.
Hey, Tom Rabbittt! I hope you got this for your recording. Hey, YouTube out there. Tom Rabbittt likes to record these. Hey, Tom Rabbittt!
And so when you say that you are the final adjudicator and that we are all the final adjudicators when it comes down to it, you're really putting yourself, without expounding upon your worldview system, you're really putting yourself in an egocentric predicament where
no, I'm not. Hang on. You're not asking me at all about my worldview. You're telling me what my worldview and what my commitments are. I'll invite you to ask me questions about what I think, and not assign and attribute things to me. I realize you're used to running this Presup.
That's the reason why I brought up. I'm acquainted with this Presup line of argument about what is your standard, okay? And I'm not going to pretend that we're actually having a conversation here. I'm not going to put up with an interrogation. If you want to ask me questions,
you gotta chill out, man. I don't think he was being mean to you.
Yeah,
I don't know why
he wasn't being mean. He wasn't being mean, but he's running a script because he's running a script. Because I don't pretend that feigned civility is civility. I know bullshit. I know bullshit when I hear it.
So, gloves coming off. Ozzy's like, yeah, this is true. I think this is good. And Tone is a hell of a person to say, like, what are you raising your votes for? I've heard Tone yell and holler and scream at people, especially when he gets into his pro-choice, pro-abort versus the pro-life groups or whatever. He gets a little out of control. So. The fact that he's like, what are you getting emotional for? This is precisely what this kind of stuff is for. Like if I present an obnoxious, Like the thing that's funny about this is that I don't know if JT is aware of where Presup comes from, especially the way it kind of gets weaponized by these guys online. It comes from the Greg Bahnsen school. And for somebody like Ozzy, who tangled with Cy Ten Brukencape back in the day, knows damn well, because Cy would advertise this to anybody who would listen, that the whole point of the apologetic is to shut people's mouths. It's to shut up the non-believer, right? It's not built on, it's not a dialectic that's designed around an exchange of ideas. It never was, at least not from the Bahnsen angle. So I don't think that there's anything wrong. This is the thing. Like, these guys seem to think that if they can couch this, it's like, oh, if I come across sounding like I'm, on a quaalude, and I use a lot of really, overly polite and disarming words, I'll, sir, and if you don't mind, and well, excuse me, but, all this kind of stuff. But, it's just larded up with, a truckload of backbiting and innuendo and bullshit, as Ozzy puts it, that by the time that the conversation runs, by the time it's run its course and it's been recorded, they can go back and point to people and like, well, look at all the polite things that I said to this person, and look at how polite, as if people are just immune to tone, right? Now, some people are. Some people don't pick up on vocal tones and vocal cues, but with most of these guys, you can tell it's just like dripping with condescension and or sarcasm, or it automatically starts out from a position well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to insist that this is your position, and I'm going to also describe this to you, and then tell you that this position has no defense. Now punch yourself out of this imaginary thing that I've just put you in, right? Like, I don't think your average Christian would really care for that, right? I have in the past, rare occasions, seen atheists kind of do the exact same thing to Christians, like, just straw man the hell out of the religion, and then they're like, all right, Christian, defend your faith as I've described it. And I'm like, well, that's not the faith that I'm part of. That's not my faith tradition, right? They don't appreciate this kind of thing, but they really appreciate using it on the non-believers, because a lot of the things that non-believers bring up, and I don't mean just atheists, right? Like, this is other believers who are just non-believers in the Christian God, the Christian faith tradition, will bring up things that are kind of touchy, right? And it's easier to just kind of dismantle the attacker than it is to kind of deal with some of the objections they raise. So,
and that's not fair, Ozzy. That's not fair.
Okay,
that is completely fair. See, now Tone is actually one of these people who probably does not get this, right? But I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't, right? But that it is perfectly fair, right? The Presup apologetic has been advertised as a way of getting people to shut up. So the idea that you, on the other end of this thing, when somebody decides to open up that, and you can see it coming around the corner, that no, what you need to do if you're serious about engagement is lay down and take this. Like, no, that's not how this works, right? If we're serious about engaging in a conversation, then we both need to be equal participants. We're not equal if I need to sit here and just take this weird attack and just accept everything that you're doing, as if what you're doing isn't designed to completely derail the previous conversation, right? Or derail a lot of these things, right? This idea of just insisting, like the interesting thing about this isn't just insisting that well, you atheists don't have a worldview that you can ground things on, which is bullshit. Especially given the way a lot of Christians, a lot of apologists define worldview. They automatically assume that the atheist has a worldview. They just, for whatever reason, they're playing with it, but then act like it doesn't exist, or it's not real, or it's not substantive. But it's substantive enough for them to claw at, like a cat, right? Then they attack the person for not being, you have to solve the problem of hard solipsism. You need to embrace the fact that you're a radical skeptic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, these aren't things that you need to do. And if Tone should be familiar with Ozzy's previous work, but he probably doesn't understand it. And JT may not know who Ozzy is from the past. I don't know how long JT's been around. So,
well, if nobody's allowed to critique your position, then I really don't see. I
would love it you to critique my position. You're attributing positions to me I don't hold, and I never put up with that.
I've only addressed what you've said so far. And
no,
what
you
attributed so far is that you are critiquing the Word of God. Well, what I want to know is by what standard you are critiquing the Word of God. And so far, all you've made clear to us so far is that you are the final determiner when it comes to, you haven't mentioned what it is your standard is other than your own egocentric opinion.
This should be good. So that's already loaded up with a bunch of horse shit, right? He's just already preloaded this. So it'd be interesting to see what Ozzy says in response. Floyd at B, yeah, exactly right. I completely agree with you. Yeah, you don't have an obligation to stand there or just sit there and be lectured at. And that's a lot of what the Presup apologetic ends up turning into. It's just them sitting there haranguing you about like, well, I don't understand why you don't have solutions to these philosophical problems. And until you do, you have to accept Christianity, which actually doesn't follow from the Presup apologetic, right? At most, what follows from the Presup apologetic is, well, until you can solve these problems, let's concede that they're making a great point about any of that. What you would concede is that there must be some kind of creator God. You can still reject like 99.99% of Christianity and concede the fact that, oh, okay, I think this presuppositional apologetic works, right? Right. But that's not going to be enough for them. Like, oh, okay, then there's a God. Aha, but is it the Christian God? No. And if they try to pull that down, all you got to do is direct them to any Muslim apologist that traffics in the same presuppositional apologetic and commits the same error by jumping from asserting, basically shifting your, going from having an attitude that no gods exist to having an attitude that God does exist to that necessarily being the God that, my faith tradition holds to. That's the leap these guys can't demonstrate. They can't justify that connection. So let's see where Ozzy goes with this. Also, Daisy had asked me earlier, Jefferson, saw you in the Skylar room earlier. Are you thinking of taking on John Lee Gacy? I'm not really interested in talking to him. I wouldn't mind talking to him, especially about the Calvinism stuff. Some of the stuff that he talked about, some of the things I heard him saying to Skylar Fiction about Calvinism were just astounding. He went on about how he's reformed and he believes in Calvinism. And I think he's said in the past that he's a monergist. And at one point he told Skylar, I don't take financial advice from people who have declared bankruptcy. Interesting, because he's a Trump supporter. But I also won't take theological or spiritual or biblical advice from someone who failed at Christianity. His words, I won't take this advice from someone who had failed at Christianity. If he's a reformed Christian, the notion of failing at Christianity should be kind of foreign to him. So he is a lot less intelligent. I didn't really, I didn't have a high estimate for his intelligence or his ability to debate. It's much, much lower. After hearing that, he doesn't understand. I don't think he even understands the implications of Reformed theology. So.
My standard, I told you, is the same standard you would apply to any other text.
Yeah, my standard is that we live in God's world.
And JT is now interrupting him. He's given him some time to talk, and now he's pulling a Darth-Dawkins, where Ozzy has started to make this comment, started to explain his position about a standard, and JT is cutting him off.
And he has sovereignly ordained all that so ever comes to pass. And that's
how you evaluated the Bible? You assumed that when you read the Bible?
Well,
no,
how else am I
because
going
you would have already have to have been a Christian believing those things when you evaluated it. How much would that evaluation have been worth? No, you had to come to the Bible believing something other than what you believe now to conclude what you believe now. Otherwise, you didn't conclude what you believe now. You already would have believed it.
I have always believed in God.
Okay, so you're kind of making Ozzy's case for him then, JT. Then you can't make the conclusion based on what you're getting from the scripture. You already knew it. That was what Ozzy was trying to say.
And the problem was that previously to my conversion, I was suppressing that truth and unrighteousness. I was suppressing that truth because I loved my sin. Okay, so it isn't that I came to some conclusion that, oh, maybe God exists, I'm going to go with this. No.
So you didn't conclude it. You always believed this? You always believed this?
Yes.
Yeah, this is going to get contentious. Thank you, Bite Me, TJ. I saw your comment later on where you were like waving the flag. I wasn't sure what you meant. No, I do.
Yes.
Okay, so you've always believed that the Bible was the inerrant word of God.
No, I've always believed that God exists, and the thing
we're not talking about whether God exists.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about whether God exists.
Hey, listen. When it comes to predication, the only way that we can consistently predicate on any matter of fact is only if we have the ability to ascertain absolute truth, epistemic certainty.
I deny that. I deny that as would nearly. I deny that as nearly any any epistemologist would. The very idea that you need certainty for predication to be possible, I think, is a position without an argument.
Are you certain about that?
I don't need to be certain about it. That's my position, that one doesn't need to be certain about it. You're arguing in a circle when you say I need to be certain for it.
You need to do this thing, but you're not absolutely.
I'm not absolutely certain about it. I'm not absolutely certain about it.
So how can you say that with authority?
I don't need to be absolutely certain about anything to affirm that I think that something is the case. I just have to have reasons for thinking that it's the case.
Is that true?
I think it's true, yeah.
You think
obviously I wouldn't be affirming it. Yeah, I think it's true. Saying I think it's true is not an admission that I think something is true. Yep, you could be wrong about what you're saying. You could be wrong about every one of your religious doctrines. Yes, you could.
I can't be wrong about
the fact that you say you can't doesn't make it so.
I wouldn't be able to speak if God hasn't revealed himself to us himself.
Yeah, this makes no sense. And not only that, but this is the claim that anybody can make this kind of claim with Presup. Well, that God has revealed it to us in this way, and that's why we have grounds to stand on when we claim to know other things, is because this one thing that we know for absolutely certain is that God exists, right? This is a sort of a mutation of like the cogito, I think there, instead of I think therefore I am, it's I think God exists. It's just really, really strained and kind of odd. And even if you wanted to say, even if for the purposes of the argument, you wanted to concede that, all right, okay, well, let's just hold on to that conclusion. There's subjective opinions, there's subjective experience, therefore there's something that provided our capacity to experience things, reality, whatever, and a reality within which to experience them. Therefore, there's a God, in big quotes, lots of question marks, Now, JT just needs to conclude that this conclusion leads to the necessary existence of the Christian God specifically, and not say the Muslim God or the Hindu pantheon or etc.
Hold on. I think this is where the disagreement here is.
Okay, no, hang on. This is we were having a nice conversation here before. Now we're running the Presup bullshit. I don't put up with it. Okay. No, I'm sorry.
If that's
Tone, I am not wasting another minute on this feigned civility while someone tells me something manifestly.
Bye.
No, I'm done. I'm not having this conversation.
Ozzy, that's legitimately our epistemology, though. That's how
we can discuss the epistemology. We were having another conversation entirely, and then someone came in and just hijacked the conversation and runs the stupid, how do you know that? How can you be certain? Is it possible that you're wrong? Okay.
All right.
That's a script. I don't play that game. I don't play that game. You're gonna see a side of me you don't like seeing. Right? This is bullshit.
And he's right. It is bullshit. Because the thing is, these guys know that they're dialing this up, right? But then they want you to like, and they want this kind of thing in a way. But I'm glad that Ozzy just basically gave it to them with both barrels, right? This is the kind of thing that they want. They want you to get frustrated and get worked up with it because that's the goal of the entire thing. What I like about this is that Ozzy's getting frustrated with the pretense of the whole thing, right? He's already danced this dance many times, more times than I think JT could or Tone can really even comprehend, because I don't think Tone can count that high. And JT, the more I hear from JT, the more I question he might be somewhere on a John Lee level of stuff. I've heard him repeat theological and apologetic claims, and then when asked some very basic things about some philosophical stuff that those theological claims are based on. I'm not trying to kick down and say like, oh, he's ignorant of philosophy, just don't talk to him. He'll make a theological claim, and part of that claim is built around a kind of key, basic philosophical tenet. And when somebody asks him about the philosophical side of it, he either pretends not to know or really doesn't know. Either way, it's not good. Yeah. But I think going after the pretense of this entire thing, like, oh no, we're gonna have this discussion, like, no, and that's not what's actually gonna happen, right? That's not, and these guys need to be reminded of this. And Warren, especially, he's in the chat. the Presup apologetic, as weaponized, as refined by Greg Bahnsen, was designed not as a dialectic to engage with opponents of different mindsets and exchange ideas. It was designed to shut people down. It was designed to stifle communication and stifle a free exchange of ideas, right? If you believe that, and it's sort of the it's the kind of shit that you see from like white supremacists at like Nazi rallies, the kind of shit that Richard Spencer would pull off, right? Like it was the basic argument, like I deserve, like, don't you believe in liberal views? Don't you believe in the freedom of speech? Don't you believe that we all have the right to speak our minds? Well, if you deny me, like, I want the right to go up here and take the pulpit. Oh, okay, well, I guess we have to do that. First thing out of your mouth is, you don't have the right to speak because you don't believe the same things I believe. And that's essentially what happens here. Here's the thing, skeptic. You're going to listen to me tell you don't have the right to tell me anything until you can ground it in the identical deity that I believe in. And until that, what I'm going to do is just wave away anything that you say, and then gaslight you, and then pretend that you're just making animal noises at me. Right? That's childish horseshit. Right? And they do it by trying to dress it up in the feigned civility that Oz is talking about, as if like that's going to preserve them, in replays later. Like, well, didn't I sound cool? Didn't I sound sophisticated? No, you sounded like a jackass. Anybody that's been around the block with this kind of stuff knows the trick that you're pulling here. It's not a complicated trick to pull. It's abusive. It's detrimental to an exchange of ideas. If you believe in free speech, which these guys don't, they wouldn't engage in this. If they had respect for an exchange of ideas, they wouldn't do this. But they don't. If they had respect for Ozzy, they would not do this stuff. But they're doing it. So it's pretty clear they don't care about Ozzy or anybody else in Ozzy's position or with Ozzy's similar viewpoints. They're just going to go after him. They're going to use this to abuse somebody that disagrees with them from the jump.
That's really what I expected.
The ironic thing is there's no civility card in the reverse.
Yeah, of course you expect this from me. This whole script.
I've never seen you act like this ever, Ozzy. This is uncharacteristic.
Oh, look around. You'll see that this is completely characteristic. I don't pretend that an interrogation and running a script is open inquiry and a philosophical discussion and an open exchange of ideas. I will not. Absolutely will not participate in this sham.
If you don't, I mean,
no, I'm not, which is why I'm leaving. But anyway, okay. Tone, it was very nice talking to you and the other people before this Presup debacle. Have fun with it.
The next day.
Oh my God!
But by the way, I see
dude.
On a related note with Presups, I see Ozzy's here, and I heard him talking to this guy JT the other day.
So now they're going to get into the conversation afterward. Warren's been kicked out, so he is fucking trolling at this point.
I told some people about this, and so I did record this conversation, right? And after Ozzy left, they pretended like Ozzy had like lost his mind or something like that, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a good point from Tom. Like this idea that like, because even Tom's like, "Whoa, why are you raising your voice? This is a different side of you. Why are you acting like this, man? Why is he so aggressive?" Ozzy's done this before. That was not uncharacteristic for Ozzy. If you try to bullshit your way through something like this and gaslight him, he will get pissed off. Right? He has a reputation for being kind and fair and being soft-spoken. He is a soft-spoken guy. It also helps probably that he's Canadian, right? Canadians tend to be pretty polite, right? And he believes in being fair, and he believes in giving people the fair shake. But this is not the first time that he has taken issue with people running horse shit past him. So, and in keeping with what Ozzy did here, I kicked Warren out because Warren is flat out just talking out of his fucking ass. So I'm only sorry that Michael Deaton wasn't here to actually kick him out. Other than like Deaton do the honors. So
this, and then they were denying that.
Also, she could apologize to anybody who was asking him questions in the live chat, because he will not be able to answer those questions for the duration of the show. So, sorry.
They interrupted Ozzy, and then they were like, "Oh, well, I'll check the replay." And so, I mean, I have access to the recording, and they interrupted him many, many times, right? Now, anybody have any idea? Anybody want to make a guess as to whether or not that replay still exists?
Yeah, I think it exists.
It's a big no.
No, there is no replay. They deleted it.
It only exists on your hard drive.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just ridiculous. That JT guy is fucking insufferable.
Yeah, he's a fucking old tool.
I'm happy to hear you recorded that. What I found irritating about
yeah, now Ozzy's gonna kind of lay it out. Jefferson's pulling my phone. Yeah, sorry, Jay. Yeah, he was being a dick. I mean, it's one thing to be in here talking like if he's gonna have an argument, but he's in here like, well, I got to stop you from guys like this guy has come to me before. Warren Mac Gruber has come to me before complaining about the mods, timing them out and stuff for like coming on here and trying to wind people up, and then he'll whine to me about, well, your mods did this and your mods timed me out and all this kind of stuff. Now he doesn't do that anymore. I haven't heard from that anymore, right? But now he's coming into the show and he thinks that he's defending Christians from me, who's gossiping against them, right? Like I've said this multiple times to Warren, like I don't care about Christianity per se. There's lots of Christians out there that do not engage in this kind of behavior. The kind of people that I'm talking about, like the Darth-Dawkins and stuff like that, are particularly pernicious group of individuals who make everything worse, not just Christianity. Well, especially Christianity in their cases, but pretty much everything else that they're associated with. Conversation, inhalation and exhalation, like everything. They make everything worse just by virtue of showing up and pretending that they're contributing something, right? Like these guys suck. And this guy is like, oh, well, you're just gossiping about Christians. And like Mac knows better, right? And Mac has basically kind of he's internalized the same kind of thing, right? Wah, poor me. I'm a Christian. I'm entitled. Don't come after me. We're persecuted, right? Remember what the Romans said to us? Like, oh my God, but then at the same time, everybody's out to get them. Everybody's against them, right? But then you misrepresent the entire show that you're on. Like if this is really that terrible a place to be, what the hell are you doing trying to represent your views here on my live chat of all places? So Mac, for that you can fuck right off for a while. And what pisses me off is that I was actually telling my mods not to time this guy out after the fact, right? Right, to give him an opportunity to speak in here without modding, and that was the thanks that I get, right? So yeah, it probably is a little selfish of me, but fuck him.
Is that I was in that room talking to Tone and some other people, and he and I had a very civil conversation that ranged on a whole range of subjects. It went on for, I think, at least 2 hours. I'm not sure. Maybe it was more, maybe it was less. I think it was 2 hours or more. It was perfectly civil. We disagreed, but it was always, very, very polite.
Yeah, Justin. Warren that's Mac.
A number of people came in and out of the room, asked me questions. I was in the hot seat the whole time. The whole time for about 2 hours, I was expressing my own views and explaining and unpacking what I thought about various subjects. And it was incredibly civil. And I was so gratified that I was, in that kind of room, the only atheist with a whole bunch of these sort of evangelical types. And it was perfectly civil. And this JT guy walks in and he starts in almost immediately with, by what standard do you, and then immediately I knew, oh, here we go. Here's this bullshit Presup argument, of the, how do you know that? Can you be certain? All of that stuff that masquerades as open inquiry, but is really just a scripted interrogation where they disregard every answer you give, cut you off when you're in the middle of answering their questions with, how do you know that? Can you be certain? By what standard? And over again. And I just said, like, I'm tired of pretending that this is an honest conversation, right? I'm tired of having good discussions hijacked in this way. And that's what I found so infuriating. And I keep seeing this happen. I keep going into rooms or listening to discussions in other people's rooms where there is a fruitful and productive conversation, sometimes heated disagreements, but nevertheless respectful, and there's sort of progress being made, and then seeing them derailed by this damn script. And everyone seems to pretend that as long as the person is soft-spoken while being rude in this way and commandeering and hijacking a conversation, everyone seems to pretend that this is okay, that because they're not swearing and flinging shit about, that they're actually still being polite, and we all have to sort of nod along. And I am just sick of this pretense. I don't know if something's changed in me, or I guess maybe something's changed in me. Maybe I've just sort of reached my limit on how much of this bullshit I can pretend, is actually civility. But
I think something has changed in him in the fact that he would be willing to give somebody, I think, the benefit of the doubt if it seemed like these guys were, if somebody was approaching something similar to this. But when it happens to be thematically or conceptually kind of in the ballpark of presuppositionalism. But when somebody shows up and they're using repeating points word for word, right, then you know that somebody has basically picked this up as a script, right, and they want to run it. And the bad thing about this too is that at this point, if you've been exposed to the Presup script, right, you've been exposed to it, you know about it one way or the other, you know about the toxic relationship that it has, regardless of what side of the Presup thing you might be on. The idea that to a certain degree, Presup, I think, appeals to a lot of Christians for two reasons. One thing, it comes close to a lot of really bad theological points that put people in a position where they're not going to be able to reevaluate their beliefs anymore. It gives them the ability to kind of lock them away in a box, and then it makes them immune from any kind of substantive or attack. And not even attack, just questioning. They can just, I don't need to worry about that from you because you just, they might as well be telling anybody that's questioning them that they're a figment of their imagination. It has about that same effect. Instead, they're just saying, "Oh, you can't ground what your questions are based on. You might as well just be chirping at me." That kind of shit. That you don't have to be philosophically inclined or philosophically gifted or particular, or even just razor sharp to understand that that's coming from a bad place, right? That's probably not the best way to deal with people, and it's probably designed to be unfair from the jump. So. Yeah, I think the only thing that's changed in Ozzy is that he's just lost patience with people who are so and that's the thing that surprised me about this one when I heard it, that JT was going to the original well and putting it right back out there pretty much, verbatim, the way, people used to, old school. I mean, even Darth Dawkins, his kind of Presup thing that he's got going for him, he has worked on that so that it's a little bit idiosyncratic. He has his own kind of a difference in terminology, and he incorporates different things in it to kind of mix things up, which doesn't make things better. It just makes them uniquely worse in a Darth way. But JT was coming at it with pretty much the standard stock version of it. So
tired of the incivility and pretending that it is civility because there's this veneer of courtesy. They'll say, "Excuse me, sir," that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Matt Yester and Darth, they'll say, "Excuse me, sir," and why are you calling me sir? You always call me Ozzy. Everyone else calls me Ozzy. Why are you calling me sir all of a sudden? Why this pretense of formality and decorum when you are in fact actually being rude, interrupting, condescending? I don't know why people pretend that this is civil discourse. There's nothing civil about it.
Well, I mean, they're Christians, Ozzy. I mean, pretending comes naturally to them. Sorry.
It is as rude as can be, and it is worse than that. It is slyly rude, right? It pretends to be something that it's not. Right? I mean, I would prefer if they just, called me names. I would much prefer that. I mean, that wouldn't send me out of the room, in frustration, right? What frustrates me is this pretense. But they seem to have figured out that as long as they don't swear at you, and they talk in this soft way, that everyone's going to have to say, "Oh, notice, I'm being civil. I'm doing everything in my power to disrupt this conversation." To not advance the conversation, to be condescending, to interrupt the flow of what you're trying to say, completely hijacking things, but I'm still being polite because I didn't swear, right? That kind of thing. You get that.
Yeah, and then they act like you're out of line because you're agitated by the bullshit, right? The charade.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that I'm agitated. Like I just tell them now, I'm not going to participate. I'm not cooperating with this. I'm not going to pretend that we're actually having a conversation here, right? That there's actually a discussion, a back and forth where you're listening to what I'm saying. Like, he kept saying, by what standard, how can you be certain? And like, my position is that one doesn't need to be certain. And your comeback is, yeah, but can you be certain about that? Did you not hear the words that came out of my mouth? I don't think I need to be certain about that. So it doesn't matter that I'm not certain about it. If you think that certainty is an ingredient in knowledge, you need to make the argument for it. But it's hard.
Yeah, and that's a great observation, because I noticed that when I was listening to it the first time. As soon as he said that, I'm like, oh my God, he's going right into like. I remember when I first started hearing Presup arguments being used and recognizing the ones that were bad when they would do what JT did. Right, they would hear from somebody like, yeah, I don't think that that's a requirement, that we have to be absolutely certain about some kind of foundational fact before we can predicate about any other facts that we think are the, or any other things that we think are the state or an actual state of affairs right now. Well, yeah, but could you be wrong about that? Are you certain about that? Like, they already addressed that, right? But then they come right back to it as a and the whole purpose of doing that was, you would ask that kind of question if they would make a statement that was kind of absolute in a linguistic sense, like this is bad or this is good or that's right and that's wrong, right? Then you can do that because you can keep tripping them up. But if somebody like Ozzy is like, no, I don't think that certainty is a thing, right? And what I'm saying is provisional, right? And it's probabilistic, and it's based on what I think to be the state of affairs. I could be wrong about it. I could be right about it. And it doesn't have to be you're all right about it and you're all wrong about it either, right? You could get some of it right and some of it wrong in any combination, in any mixture, right? But these guys want to make it a zero-sum game, black and white, right and wrong, and in an absolute sense. You're absolutely correct, you're absolutely wrong. And again, I would roll them back to that same point. Okay, cool. All you guys got to do then, if you really think that this is, convincing, the Presup thing, and obviously it's convincing for guys like Warren, Matt Gruber, and a few others that think that this is something to hang on to, is show the connection between, okay, we need a God, right? God is necessary for us to be able to do things and know things. How is it the case that it's necessarily the unembodied mind or the Christian God specifically? Because that's the argument that they're running with, not just God as a vagary, right? Specifically the Christian God, the one that they hold to, with all the theological and faith tradition implications that come with that. Why that one and why not like a pantheon of gods, right? Then they'll have to start justifying that with other theological claims and all this other kind of stuff. But it all backs up into this. The central claim that they're making is must be that one, otherwise nothing. Otherwise, you don't make sense. It's bonkers.
To even get that sentence out, because before you can get that sentence out, that rebuttal out, they hit you by what standard? Are you certain about that? How do you know that? And so forth, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm just sort of sick of this game of deliberately trying to prevent dialogue with the person that they're supposed to be in dialogue with. I'm tired of this pretense when clearly the game is something else entirely. It is simply trying to show other people they can't answer this question. And I'll prove that by actually not letting them answer. And yet somehow this passes as a reasonable apologetic. I don't understand it, how people are letting themselves fall for this. I mean, this started with Saitan Brigade because
yeah, and at this point, I think this is an interesting point because he's kind of concerned, like, how are people falling for this? Meaning the people who are using the Presup apologetic, why are they falling for this and thinking that this is a good idea, that this is a good apologetic, that this is productive, right? Daisy, Justin, what do you think of the other Jeff's response asking them to justify premise one? I think you mean by Jeff Trimble when he's asking, like, how do you justify the claim that intelligibility requires the existence, it's necessary for the existence of the unembodied Christian God to ground intelligibility or to make intelligibility a factor. I think that it's a good question to ask any of these guys, mostly because, a lot of these guys are capable of kind of, they'll line up the premises and then they'll have it in the argument, right? It'll follow like modus ponens, right? It'll be P, Q, P, therefore Q. So the validity's there, right? And And then they start doing what I'm always concerned that I think that they're doing, is that because it's in modus ponens, and because there's a valid inference rule, and it's, if it's valid, therefore it's sound. That's what I always think that these guys are doing. Like, well, I got an argument right there, and it's valid, therefore it's sound, therefore, boom, it's truth, right? I really do think that a lot of these guys are doing that. And then when somebody whines them back, like, okay, yeah, it is valid. It's a valid argument, right? If done that way, that inference rule is truth. They call truth preserving, but you don't know if the premises are true. So then I think it's fine to challenge that first premise. Like, what about this claim? Can you unpack that a little bit more? And from what I've seen from people that have been asked, not just by Jeff Trimble, but by others, they can't. So. Presup really is just the radical evangelical equivalent of a 5-year-old's playground retorts to criticism or insult. Yeah, that kind of is.
I remember presuppositionalists, way back in the day. Now this is sort of before Google Hangouts and all that, but I mean, these were largely written type discussions on IRC. I remember them having these kinds of discussions. And they couldn't interrupt you because you were typing. I type and you type, I type and you type, and we could sort of type at the same time, and there was some crosstalk that way. But they couldn't literally cut you off, right? And if they were just ignoring what you were saying, it was evident that they were ignoring what you were saying, right? But in an actual oral discussion, you can cut people off. You can block them. You can literally step on their throats by talking over them. And if you've got mods, well, then you can totally throttle them, right? They've figured out a way to make it seem like other people can't answer their question by literally interrupting them and not letting them answer. And even if they do let them answer, ignoring the content of what was said. Imagine telling a person that you don't think certainty is an ingredient in knowledge. You don't think that's relevant. You don't think that's required, and ask them, why do you think it's required? And then them coming back with, can you be certain about that? I mean, talk about saying something that falls on deaf ears, right? Like, they're literally not replying to what you're saying. This is what I mean when I say they're running a script. It's not that just they have a well-rehearsed argument. No, it's that they're literally reading a script. It doesn't matter what you say. They have lines to recite.
Right, exactly. Cascade. I agree with Ozzy on this, which is why I don't VC these guys 99% of the time. Easier for me to gather my thoughts and text chat. Yeah, that's kind of why I do what I do with my YouTube channel. It's my way of kind of responding to what's being said without having to deal with the aggravation of being of being interrupted and muted and threatened to kick. To me, the worst thing is the threats of muting, the threats of kicking, and then the weird moral, kind of like moralizing that, do you really want me to kick you? Like, if you can't behave yourself, I'm gonna, like, if you don't behave, I'm turning the car around, like that kind of shit. Like, I fucking hate that. And this is coming from guys who, to me, represent some of the worst behavior I've ever seen in what I think are adults, but they're in there like, oh, you're getting your explanation is taking longer than 5 seconds. Now I'm going to kick you and mute you. And if you object to me interrupting you or kicking you or muting you or whatever, well, then obviously you're in your fifis and your feelings. I've noticed these guys have been doing this a lot. John Lee, the dork that is on Clubhouse all the time, he's probably in that room listening in on with Ozy and them, is done this kind of thing where if he thinks that somebody's getting worked up, then he thinks he's got to win. Like, people are going to get emotional about this kind of stuff. The thing that kind of freaks me out about some of this kind of stuff when these guys do this, like, I thought Christians were supposed to be kind of emotionally invested in this. I thought they were supposed to love God, but most of them, you get them on here and they're just talking about it like they're just reciting the source code for their Borg ship or something. It's really, I mean, I think this stuff is all way too interlaced with just like debate bro culture from the internet, and probably, I mean, I'm going to go there, probably some right-wing nonsense too. Some of the dumber shit. So from Nick, let's see. Another good question that tends to fall on the deaf ears of presups is certainty in which sense? Epistemic, logical, or psychological? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't want to kick you, but I will. Yeah, or remember you asked for this, as they're kicking you. But no, I didn't ask for any of that. Like I was trying to make a point. You interrupted me, and when I interrupted back, you accused me of talking over you and then kicked me. Right? We've spent the last several minutes talking about what you're about to do, only for you to do it, and then you can go and like virtue signal to friends like, well, he was asking for it. Look what he did. Look how many times he was. Look how worked up he got. Look at the feelings he presented. Oh, those emotions have got to go. These guys are the worst.
Right. And so it doesn't matter what you say. They can disregard it. It doesn't matter that what they're reciting is inapplicable as a rejoinder to what the objection or the question that you've raised. And anyway, I find it fascinating that people are going along with it and have been for so long.
Well,
welcome to Tom's rooms. The same thing goes on here.
And you won't see JT speak.
Thanks, J.L. Warren. Yeah, have a good show, and I will probably be over to check that out once I'm wrapped up with mine. Take it easy.
You anywhere without mod powers. So if you catch him in a room without him, you could try to discuss it with him again, and he just won't respond to you.
Oh, well, I'm unlikely to have a discussion with him because what came through in this conversation and what I have heard of him before when I've listened in is he doesn't know anything about the subject. He doesn't actually know any epistemology. But when he talks maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's taken some philosophy courses somewhere.
He's not.
Yeah, it seems to me he knows absolutely no epistemology. He's never taken logic. He's never taken introductory epistemology. Everything that he's learned on the subject is via this apologetic that he's supposed to apply over and over and over again. And so he has these lines that he just recites without actually having an argument behind them.
Yeah, which is that kind of goes to the point that I was making earlier. Like he gets JT. I can't remember who it was he was talking to. He tried to make some kind of point. He blurts it out, and somebody asked him something really basic, and it was kind of like a basic logic one or something like that, or just a kind of a basic kind of a philosophical concept. Nothing too esoteric, nothing too weird. And he's, I don't know what that is. And I wish I could remember the example, but it was sort of pivotal to what he was bringing up. And it's like, if you had looked into that, if you understood that was kind of connected to this theological thing that you're trying to throw out there, like, and it was weird too, because he just drops them like he's just dropping these pearls of wisdom that you just have to take. You have to, this very wise, Holy Spirit filled individual is repeating things back to us, and then you ask him like, okay, well, can you back that up? Can you expound on that a little bit more? Generally, no, he can't. He's unarmed at that point.
So he actually used to be nice and kind of charitable. I talked to him before, and then he kind of started hanging around with Darth, and then became this way over the course of a few months.
Yeah. Well, Darth has this outside influence on people. Some people like a bully, right? If people feel that they're sort of being put down and looked down upon by, the atheist community, and then some guy comes along who's, just, full of piss and vinegar, and rude to them and stuff like that, and tries to pwn them, they don't care too much about the cogency of the arguments. They just like seeing this in action, right? They just like seeing one of the people on their team beating somebody on the other team, and they don't care if they're playing by World Wrestling Federation rules where they're throwing chairs into the ring and stuff like that. Like, they don't care, right? It's just good to see your guy winning, right? By hook or by
at least
crook.
they perceive them as winning. They even might kind of.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't matter how they win. It doesn't matter if they win by force of argument or if they win just by kind of bullying. They're just happy to see their opponents being bullied. Right. It doesn't matter that the guy on their side literally has mod powers and is throttling the other person and preventing them from speaking, and then berating them and condescending to them with some kind of lecture or something like that.
This came up earlier. I was having a conversation with my brother, and the topic of redefined living came up. Who's a user? And he's been around for a while, I guess. I didn't realize how long until I heard this story, but he's one in Darth's crew, and I've commented on him before. He showed up. I think he's usually like, his avatar is like a T-Rex from like a creation museum or something like that. There's somebody hanging out of it. Anyway, I remember having a long exchange of comments, and he would get ticked off, and he would, if you edited your comment, if you spell checked your comment afterward, he would get suspicious, and he would stop talking to you. He would selectively delete certain responses that you made, and he would claim it was because he deemed it irrelevant. Real generous guy. It turns out that apparently back in the old Google Plus days, he would do those kinds of things where people would have these exchanges, and then he would delete like maybe the last comment provided by an atheist somebody was arguing with, and then go on and have a conversation at length and use that as proof. Like, they were left speechless by my last comment. Make those kinds of claims. So, if you do see him around, Redefined Living is a scumbag and a liar.
That's all good. As long as they're seeing their guy bullying the member of the other team that they find so objectionable.
Well, it's like they get pinned and they're bloodied and battered, and they stand up and raise their arms and think they're won.
And that's
This is interesting here. Mark Reed, good to see you, Mark. I think Redefined Living is on my block list. I usually don't block people, but that guy is special. Yeah, he's special. Redefined Living is best described as spare parts. His comments, I think I described this in the last video. I've been in a lot of comment exchanges on different video comment threads and stuff before with some goofballs like Jesus is Lord and some others, but I was in a long one with him, and it was so weird because I would write a comment, and then the response I would get back would be just something completely, just a total tangent in another direction, right? Like he would point, like, you didn't address what I last said, and then he would go off, and I'm like, okay, this is clearly insane. The only person that I can really kind of compare his sort of like stream of consciousness, barely holding on to reality style writing was Tone Lib. Because Tone did the same thing when I commented on his happy birthday to me, I'm still a virgin, ain't gotten anybody pregnant, ain't gotten an STD video. He did one. Look it up. It's, as the kids say, it's cringe. And good to see you too, Mark.
exactly what goes on in this room. I keep telling you guys.
Yeah, we heard you, John.
Well, I can't say I've seen anything sort of that way systematically. I mean, I've seen people dogpiling, in these rooms.
Odd Flex, are you talking about John Lee? Like, this kind of thing goes on in these rooms too. Like, yeah, because atheists are notorious for engaging in an argumentative method that has its own name and is notorious in circles for being blatantly dishonest and psychologically abusive. Sure, John, right? Like, it's not the fact that John goes into rooms surrounded by non-believers, talks out of his ass 90% of the time, and probably being conservative there. And then people either ignore him, blow him off, or completely wreck him. And if you're interested in that, Tom Rabbitt's got an almost hour-long video between John Lee and Skylar that I encourage you to watch because, well, I encourage you to watch. A recommendation with a caveat. Hopefully you've got a strong stomach and some good patience. Drink something soothing. Maybe have some CBD or something like that before getting into it. It's John Lee is a little bit of a mess.
There's no shortage of bias and dogpiling that happens in atheist rooms. I just don't think there's anything comparable to presuppositionalism on the atheist side. Now, you could see that if you were sort of in a room with Bionic Dance and Aaron Ra and stuff like that. But, those people don't get together and do these sorts of things. But I mean, I think you would see that because those people are really in the habit of arguing very badly for their positions and agreeing with one another. And, there's some people, some atheists who've never heard a bad argument against religion, right? Every argument against religion is a good one.
Right. John has kind of a lot of resentment towards us. I don't know if you were able to detect that, but
no, that was clear. Yeah.
Actually, Ozzy, I'm very surprised at what you're saying right now because I used to know you from the great debate community with Steve McRae.
Oh, here we
and
go.
You're a very nice, personable person there. And so the way you're reacting now, you seem to be venting at frustration, which is like unlike you from my experience with talking.
So, first of all, the fact that Ozzy is frustrated with the way somebody has performed in a debate, or in the case that he was involved in when somebody comes in and interrupts a discussion he's already having and throws out the Presup thing, is not unusual. Like, I don't know if John Lee knows, like John Lee saying, oh, I know you from the great debate. So like, you don't know him that well if you're trying, like, this is John trying to engage in the same kind of horse shit that Tone and JT were trying to do. Like, whoa, where's the guy that we thought was a punching bag? Why isn't he going down? Why isn't he just laying on the mat and letting us, like, just, kick him, until we get bored with him and then remove him from the stream, right? Like, that's never been the case with Ozzy. I don't know why these guys, like, these guys, are these guys that, moronically superficial that they think that because somebody is soft-spoken, they're just a complete pushover? Like, this makes no sense. Like, if you're a complete moron, then you do them like, oh, well, they sound nice and they seem nice and they're soft-spoken, so they must be a wimp. Like, those are the people that you do not fuck with, right? Like, I mean, you don't have to have a lot of miles on you to know that that's the kind of person you don't fucking trigger, right? The guy that's talking trash and talking lots of action and stuff like that, that person's probably at like absolutely no threat at all. Do not piss off soft-spoken people. They will cut you. It will happen. Right? Like, just don't do it. And John Lee is here offering up this just kind of ridiculous. What happened to you, man? Like, did you just decide to start? You start every morning with whiskey now instead of coffee. What's going on? Like, at this point, John Lee should be just removed from the channel at that point, like from that particular room. Like, get the hell out of here, you fucking moron. Like, and I know he's saying this for the benefit of hearing himself speak. Like, oh, maybe I'm concerned about you. Like, are you concerned about Ozzy, or are you just saying this because you want to cast aspersions his way? Like, I think Ozzy's lost it. Like, well, if you keep doing that, he's gonna lose it. Yeah, guaranteed, right? It's like, well, it was the craziest thing. We started a year-long campaign to drive him mad, and then he went mad. I mean, what a dope, right? I mean, he lost his mind. It's not like we had anything to do with it. John Lee, super genius.
But it's funny. It always strikes me as odd when I hear people say Ozzy's a nice guy. I'm not a nice guy. I've never tried to be a nice guy. I like to have civil conversations. I mean, really, that's all I give a damn about. And I've always been incredibly impatient in discussions where people try to bully you and silence you and stuff like that. I routinely just say, well, screw this. I'm just going to leave. Why? Because I do this as a kind of recreation. And if you're just going to sort of, flip the chessboard all the time, if that's your way of arguing, well, then I'm just going to leave the gaming table. I have dishes and laundry to do, which is going to be more enjoyable than this nonsense. And I've never been a nice guy that way. I just believe in being polite. I'm not interested in sort of making friends or enemies. I never set out to pwn anybody or anything like that. I think that's always kind of an unfortunate thing when people get into it. And I realize people get a lot of enjoyment out of it, but it seems to me that when atheists do it, it's no better than when the Presup types
Cue John Lee. Cue John Lee whining. Does he whine more? Because that's a layup for him.
But no, I'm not a nice guy. And I think people mistake someone wanting to have conversations and insisting on trying to be civil themselves. They mistake that for, oh, well, he's just sort of meek and mild-mannered. I am fairly mild-mannered in my ordinary life, and I am fairly soft-spoken. But I will argue strenuously for my positions, and when people try to step all over me, I will get pissed off every time, right? It
can confirm.
It's worse than rude, right? It makes conversations of this sort impossible. It's absolutely poisonous.
Yeah, and he hasn't had to do this often, but he has been outspoken against people who have tried to employ these kinds of weird rhetorical dirty tricks before. Like, and the interesting thing is that Ozzy is soft spoken enough where if he just change the tone of his voice changes. This is interesting too, right? Because all Ozzy has to do is go from being conversational Ozzy to assertive Ozzy, and then in this case to willing to drop a profanity. He's getting that assertive, like, don't come at me with this bullshit, right? And all of a sudden, these guys are incredibly attuned, very sensitive all of a sudden to the tonal shift in a person's voice, the word changes that they use, the vocabulary changes. And yet, and this is part of the gaslighting package, right, is if they're doing this, right, it doesn't matter how many sirs they pepper you with, or how polite seeming the language is, or the type of vocabulary that they're using, especially if they're really trying to dress it up and trying to sound like, oh, I'm just engaging in a facts only, emotions have been turned off, we're just the facts here. And you can hear their voice change. You can hear when they're getting condescending. You can hear them getting aggressive. You can hear them losing their cool. You can hear it in their voice. All of a sudden, they disregard their capacity to understand the importance of vocal tone. But everything that came from Tone and from JT and now from John Lee is based entirely on the fact that Ozzy has gone from being what they considered to be kind of meek and mild, oh yeah, he's easy going, he's a nice guy, to being assertive and insisting, look, miss me with the Presup bullshit. I'm not having it. Right? Like, whoa, where'd this come from? Like, I offered to buy him a drink and he put a gun in my face. Like, that's the equivalent that they're trying to make this out of. Like, no, that's not what it is. Right? Like, you guys were having a conversation. This guy walked up to him and did the wet willy thing. And he slapped his hand away and said, do it again. And watch what happens, right? That's more of the dynamic here. Knock that shit off. And these guys just are so fucking childish. And so, John Lee is just a tiny, tiny example of how bad these guys are at handling basic conversations with other people. I mean, it's really stunning. And the thing that astounds me the most is that there's so many of these guys. I mean, it's not a big group. This is a crazy, weird niche of the internet. But I mean, more than a handful of these kinds of guys act in this way. It's just, I kind of wondered, like, what caused it? Just something in the water?
And I resent it deeply, and I always have. That nothing's changed in that respect. Watch me on the Magic Sandwich Show. Watch me in Google Hangouts and stuff like that.
Now, I noticed you made the distinction between being polite and being nice. I mean, I kind of consider them synonymous.
Jesus Christ, John Lee is a superficial bitch. It's like the difference between somebody being kind but not being nice, right? There are people who are kind but don't come across as particularly, they're not pleasant people. They're gruff, terse, taciturn, maybe they're not, but they are kind, right? If they see somebody in trouble, they will help. If there's anything that they can do to alleviate someone's suffering, they will do that in a way that they can, but they might not be the nice in the pleasant sense, right? And if John Lee thinks that kindness equals pleasant, right, which seems to be what he thinks nice is, what a chump.
You have to be polite. Yeah, I mean, nice people are polite, right? But you can be polite without being nice.
And you can be pleasant and not be kind. Go to California.
But it's not important that people be nice. It's not important that people be likable and affable in these rooms, right? That's not important to me, right? I don't require that of anyone. I'd rather someone, who dislikes me just came out and said, I really dislike you, but let's have the argument and stick to the arguments, right?
Yeah.
And if they want to toss an insult here and there, I can handle it, right?
And I'm sure he can. He is Canadian.
What I don't like is people that try to sabotage conversations, right? I mean, I've seen Darth do this many times. He'll see a conversation going on. It's all very civil between theists and atheists. He can't stand that. And he'll join the room and he'll take over and he will set, the cat among the pigeons. He just tries to derail things and amp people up and piss people off. He tries to turn people against one another. It offends his sensibilities when he sees theists and atheists actually getting along and having a conversation. They're getting along in that they're being civil with one another. They're not getting along in the sense that they agree.
This is absolutely correct.
Don't, but they just agree to abide by the norms of civil and rational discourse. He can't stand that. And he sabotages that routinely.
And it kind of seems like it works on somebody like John Lee, because John Lee and Darth Dawkins are emotionally probably at the same, maturity level.
And I have no patience for that stuff.
I agree with that. I used to go to, I'm a Christian. I used to go to After Christian a lot, and they used to mod me there. And this is in the early days when Darth Dawkins came to Clubhouse. And, for example, like a Muslim would come and ask about the Trinity, which is a normal thing to do, actually. But Darth Dawkins would just interrogate them, like he's asking the questioner to the point where it just looks really bad. And I actually sent them down to the audience for that. And people got on my case about taking the side of a Muslim. When are you going to take the Shahada? You're giving a platform for Muslims. I mean, there was a lot of support for Darth Dawkins at the time. And I think sometimes his actions are frankly deplorable. And I actually have a rule in my group where it's never to mod Darth Dawkins.
Thank you, Tom Rabbittt. Hey, Tom.
So Tom Rabbittt gives John Lee the kind of the last word on that one. But yeah, no, I couldn't have agreed with Ozzy any more than that. I think he perfectly summed it up. I think it was. I think it's high time that any of these guys that are starting to traffic this stuff or have been trafficking in this kind of Presup BS on Clubhouse need to hear from guys like Ozzy, who've been around the block and are talking about it this way, because there's too much of this crap where it's like, well, I'm going to present this kind of thing and you have to take it seriously. No, you fucking don't, right? And that's really refreshing coming from Ozzy, and coming from anybody really, to just be like, no, I don't have to take this seriously, especially this particular tactic, right? And I know that Ozzy knows where this comes from, right? And he didn't even get into that with these guys. I don't think they would have given him time to, but I think he gave them, if they understand that, he was actually being respectful, and that he assumes that they know as well as he knows that the Presup thing is just a line of horse shit designed to confound and frustrate people. It's not really based on actually starting up a real conversation, right? The whole thing is constructed around the pretense that the Christians already won before they even began the conversation, right? Simply because they're talking to somebody who isn't a Christian, right, or identifies as something else. So, yeah, it's bullshit. So, yeah, always good to see Ozzy on his game for that. And, thanks to Tom for compiling those two together, getting those two and putting them together. I think it's good to see that kind of like pushback on some of these guys in these social media circles. I mean, I haven't seen this kind of stuff is obnoxious. But this pales in comparison to some of the stuff that happens on Discord servers. I mean, Discord is like, some of those servers over there are out of control, toxic. So this is a fraction of that, but it's good to stop it, when and where it reveals itself. Let me see here. Randolph writes, whenever someone tells me that I have to do something, e.g., taking an argument seriously, respect their religion, I immediately regard it as a red flag. Yeah, I think that's a problem. Like, I'm willing to concede in most cases. I'm willing to respect somebody's faith tradition, whatever it is. I start off at kind of a basic default if they're like, oh, well, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I will start kind of taking away respect if I see them just sort of like trash their own religion or, be abusive to other people, or just sort of like, as I see them come up short, then all of a sudden I'm like, no, I'm not so sure I need to be, super cordial with you. And, but I mean, it doesn't just apply to the faith tradition, it will apply to other things as well. But yeah, when somebody's like, you owe it to me to take this seriously. Like, no, I don't. If you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation. But if you start the conversation with, metaphysically, you're just automatically wrong, right? I mean, the basic question to ask any of these preceptors is like, okay, so if I accept God, how do I go from being metaphysically automatically wrong about everything to being metaphysically automatically grounded in anything, but still capable of making mistakes in my judgment? Like, how does this work? Like, goofy bastards. The only preceptor that has ever struck me as being interested in a genuine conversation is Eli. It's Ayala. Yeah, he doesn't seem as bad. Like, and I've seen some exchanges that he's had that have been pretty. I kind of wonder if maybe he'll like deconvert or become like more of a liberal Christian. But yeah, I kind of wonder sometimes the way he approaches Presup, why he's even messing with it. I think for him, there's more of a transcendental argument for God kind of thing that he's fixated on, and less of the kind of Presup rhetorical bullying stuff that Bonson, front loaded. John Lee has reached the point that his apologetics is where the analogy of someone fisting their own ass. Like, Jesus Christ, Jay. Presup equals I can't be wrong. Yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, with that, I think I'm going to wrap this one up here. This was, shortish for me, an hour and 10 minutes. Thanks, everybody. Like and subscribe, do all that, or, hate and avoid, whatever you're going to do. I got to make sure that, check my settings and make sure old Warren's not banned forever or not. I don't know. It just depends on my mood. Yeah, thanks for showing up. Thanks for viewing. As always, thanks for the live chat. It's always fun. I will be back probably later this week for another one. I have plenty to cover. So was thinking about covering, I might be going over Mark Reed's debate with Jesus is Lord. I have not covered really anything from Jesus is Lord / rebuke and reprove because I've had no reason to. His own videos that he puts on his channel are absolute YouTube poison. I mean, it's this kind of stuff that will get you, get your channel banned, which he's had one channel removed already for his election stuff. But that debate sounds like it might be pretty good. I might be doing something a little bit different with that one, a condensed review hitting like different talking points, because Jill likes to repeat himself. And for those, I think everybody that watches my channel is probably familiar with rebuke and reprove, but for those of you who are not, you are in for what is genuinely one of the worst human beings I have ever spoken with in my life. And that's including guys like Terry Stanley, Terry, the Yahweh guy, 7 Day, Cap and Calendar, or who's the other complete ding dong? Well, Redefine Living. Yeah, he's in that category. He's just the worst. So yeah, it could be fun. So I'll keep you guys posted. If I go live with that one, could be fun. Then again, it could be a total drag where I just ramble on and on. But anyway, take care, folks. Have a great evening, great morning, wherever you are. And I will catch you all in the next video.